Hey friends, coming to you from the Herman Gulch Trailhead. This is one of my favorite hikes in Colorado for wildflowers, and as you can see, I am not the only one who feels this way. 8 a.m. on a Monday, no wait, a Wednesday, and parking lot's pretty full. Doesn't anyone work around here? Let's go find some flowers. To start, today we're hiking on the ancestral lands of the Ute and Cheyenne Native American tribes. I think it's important to acknowledge this ancestral land because the places that we now call national forests used to be people's homes before. All right, got our first fun specimen today. This is the fireweed, and the reason it's called the fireweed is that it generally grows after fire comes through. Like right now, you see a couple of them here in a high disturbance area, but post-fire, when this all comes down, this is one of the first plants to come back. The other thing that's cool about it, and I'll see if I can find some later, is that the seeds on it are really hairy. And so I always think about it like as smoke, like coming off of this fireweed, and it's like a cool little remembrance. So I moved to Colorado from California, where most of the vegetation is about this high and dry most of the year. And I come here and there are just trees everywhere. I don't know anything about trees. So trying to find fun ways to figure out what tree is what, had a friend tell me that when you look at a leaf, so here's our big tree, you kind of touch the end and you figure out, is it spiny or is it soft or flat? In this case, this one's spiny. And then you feel it. It's like, is it squared or is it flat? And you look closely, see how many leaves are coming off of each little branch. So right now we have a spiky, a square leaf. So we have a square, spiky spruce. Then we come over here, and me looking at this tree, again, coming here from California, so yeah, it's the same tree. But you come touch the leaves on it, and these are flat. And these also have a flat shape. And so that since it's not spiky, it's friendly, and it's flat. And so we have a flat, friendly fir. This is the Douglas fir. This is the Engelmann spruce. So those are two of the three main evergreen species that we're going to find today. So you might be thinking, hey Mike, last time you did this about a month ago, everything was dying. How are you going to find flowers today? It's one of my favorite things about Colorado is because of the mountains, because there's this elevation gradient from Denver to the west. You can chase spring up into the hills, up to the top of the mountains, till pretty much the end of summer. There's always something to find. Today we're like 9,500 feet. It is uphill, which is why I'm breathing heavy. Whoops, there's a lot of rocks, but it's what's going to allow us to find some fun things. While down the hill back home, everything's pretty dried up. Ooh, speaking of fun things, here's the last evergreen species that I was talking about. So this is what I thought all trees were out here, pine trees. The difference in the pine tree versus the fir and the spruce is that generally speaking, pines are going to have multiple leaves coming off of each stem. This, the number of leaves that are coming off help you identify which pine tree it is. This is the lodgepole pine, has 2 leaves, like the fir, kind of spiky, but a lot longer generally too than you'll see on spruce and fir trees. Oh man, it's gonna be a good day. Look at this. We have Columbine, Colorado state flower, getting these at the beginning of the trail. I usually don't see these till like a mile and a half in. Oh, I think this could be a long video, guys. Ah, there we go. Got some natural stream sounds, blocking out that traffic noise from the freeway at the start. Now we're in nature. Okay, wow, like I said, gotta be a good day. Check it out. This is the elephant head flower. If you look closely, you can kind of see the elephant head shape to it. So a lot of the flowers that I know are on this trail that we're gonna be talking about are around flower morphology, which means like it just means the shape of the flower. And this is a great example where obviously this flower didn't like say, I want to look like an elephant, but developed these structures to aid in its reproduction, and they just happen to look like other things that we've seen in nature. Okay, here's another fun one. This one right here is a wild orchid. It is the bog orchid, and I don't really know much about it except that it's really pretty. And it makes me happy that, I don't know, for some reason I always feel like orchids are rare in this part, so whenever I find them, it's like cool. Oh man, look at that. It's Mount Snicktow. It's one of the 13,000 foot peaks. Ooh, and check this out. All right, we got here another piece of interesting morphology. This species is called the monk's hood. As if you look, you can kind of see how the top petal of the flower is kind of hooked over the top, just like it would be a monk's hood, as you would expect to see. I don't know, where do monks do their monk things? I don't remember. But anyways, I really like this flower. It's just, it's got a cool shape, and hopefully show you another one in a little bit that's like similar but different. All right, this is definitely gonna be one of those days where we don't get anywhere on the trail as more and more fun things keep popping up. Okay, this is another species of pedicularis, which is what the elephant head is. You can see kind of a similar shape here, and what you could expect to be the trunk coming off, whoop. But the ears, like what would be the ears, are much different shaped here. So it's related, but doesn't quite have that same elephanty experience. Okay, and then right over here we have a penstemon species that's dying, and maybe I'll find a better one of these later on. This is Whipple's penstemon. It's got the neat, again, going back to morphology, these tubular flowers that are great for hummingbirds sticking their beaks up into, getting that nectar. This one, which again we may find later on, comes in both white varieties and purple varieties. Same species, just different colors. It's a fun one you usually find higher up in the mountains. All right, here's another beauty. This one is called the American bistort. Its scientific name is Bistorta bistoides. It is fun to say. You can see flowers, individual flowers popping up on the stalk. Generally grows in wetter areas. So it's little kind of fireball, like white fireballs of flowers coming out. Oh, fun. This is what I was thinking about when I was telling you about the monk's hood earlier. These are larkspur species, and you can see they call it the larkspur because right there, that spur coming out of the back of the flower. These are fascinating. This is mostly like a bee pollinated plant, because like to get to the pollen, to get to the nectar, the bee or the fly has to crawl up underneath here to access what it wants. But the trick is that the nectar is in the back there. So it has to have like this combination of the girth, like to actually land and get up underneath the flower, as well as the tongue to get back to actually get the nectar. So I think a lot of things will land on this, trying to get there, can't quite reach it, and have to turn around. All right, here's something just to prove to you that I wasn't lying last time. Got some sunflowers right here. Don't worry, I'm not gonna talk about these much today. And they're pointing, bam, right at the sun. Probably when we're coming down, we'll check again, watch them track it across the sky. Ooh, here we go. Also got end game. Where we're heading today is the base of this mountain is where Herman Lake is. Beautiful, beautiful alpine lake. Can't wait. All right, here's another one of my favorite flowers. This one's kind of my favorite for a different reason. This is the sulfur flower buckwheat. And it's called the sulfur flower because a lot of these, a lot of versions of this will be really bright yellow. So like the reason this is my favorite is because when I was working at Craters of the Moon National Monument, I had to track this flower all over the monument in order to collect seeds from it for a restoration plot. So beginning of my job was kind of finding it when it was just leaves like this, trying to identify it between this one and other similar species. And then I went and took a bunch of pictures of the flowers. And then a couple months later, came back and actually cut off the flower heads and collected seed so that a restoration project where there had been some disturbance could happen after I left. So it always reminds me of my time at the park, which kind of got me on this path to care about flowers and get excited about these things. Okay, so as I mentioned these earlier, this is a spot where we usually see them on the trail, so I was waiting here because I knew I could get up close and personal. Here we go. The Rocky Mountain Columbine, Colorado state flower. Just a beautiful specimen of a species. Okay, so the purples and the whites and the long spurs coming off the back. One of the things I remember early on learning about these flowers is the reason that they're angled the way they are is to help pollinators get down into the flower. If it's too steep, like this one might be, it might be hard for like a hovering hummingbird to get its beak down in there, or for a moth to land and get its tongue down there. Okay, so the other cool thing about this is, we talked about this last time, the difference between the petals and the calyx. And so in this case, the petals are going to be the white that you see here, and the calyx, which are these modified leaves, are the purple. And then you look in the back, you're like, oh, so the purple are the spurs as well. But no, look at this. The petal actually goes from white to purple and connects to that spur in the back, while the calyx kind of just ends and stays there. So the petal is connected all the way in the back to where these nectar nodes are, right here. Kind of see them a little darker at the tips, where all the good stuff is that the hummingbirds and the moths are trying to get to. Look at this guy. So I was telling you about. Look at him, like, get up underneath that flower. These are native bumblebees, not your honeybees that you see most of our honey coming from. Really exciting to watch the kind of pollination process in action. Bye! Okay, now that we have these species right next to each other, I want to talk a little bit more about the similarities. So here we have the monkshood, and check out this flower. It's right up against the stem, kind of whirled around a little bit. We go over here, and we have the larkspur. So, woo! Look at the leaves down here, and you see kind of the same thing. It's right up against the stem, same kind of shape. Got this palmate shape. Remember we were talking about that, whoop, last time, kind of your palm sticking out. These ones are much deeper lobes. So the lobes go almost all the way into the center. Well, these ones here are connected more on the outside. So again, you can kind of see colors, flowers, shapes, all the good stuff that helps us understand what flowers are related to one another. All right, so you'll hear me say this is my favorite flower to most flowers that I find. This is my favorite flower, mostly because of how I learned about it. This is the yarrow. Learned about this one when I worked at Yellowstone National Park, and that yarrow is one of the most attractive foods for bears. Like the yarrow, the roots, they dig them up, they eat them. Very like important to their diet. And so every time I see them, it just reminds me of watching bears at Yellowstone. This is a species that's found all over the western US and is a pretty sunflower type of flower. So you can look at it closely and see it's mostly ray flowers, these big ray flowers on the outside. It's a couple of little disc flowers in the middle where you're seeing the stamens pop out. So yeah, just like that. All right, this is another fun one. This species right here is the death camas. And from what I understand, the reason it's called the death camas is that this is poisonous to foragers, so like cows that are in fields eating grass. Like if they eat some of this, they get sick and they can die. So it's named that. This is one of those species you probably don't want to eat if you get trapped in the wilderness, but it's got a super pretty flower to it. All right, so one of the fun things to do whenever you see trees falling in the forest is getting a closer look at the tops of the trees. Because most of the time when we're experiencing a tree, we're looking at it from the bottom and you can only see the little bits at the top. Oftentimes with these species, the tops of the tree are where the pine cones grow. Or, sorry, this is the spiky, square spruce, the Engelmann spruce, so it's a spruce cone. And they often grow on the top halves of the trees. So a lot of times you'll see the pollen cones more on the bottom, and then when the wind blows, because like the wind like settles the pollen on the top, that's like where the female cones that will create the seeds grow. So here we got some fun Engelmann spruce cones. You can see this probably fell a little bit of avalanche or wind or something to that effect. Let's keep it up. All right, there's another fun one. This is one of the few sunflowers I'm going to talk about today. This is the alpine sunflower. As you can see, we're approaching, oh man, look at all those columbines up there. I wonder if you can even see that. There's like a whole purple field of them. Anyway, it's the alpine sunflower. We are not yet in official alpine zone. As you can see, all of the trees still around, but this is a little variation in the soil that's creating more of an alpine growing environment. So this is you'll see here too, hopefully we'll see these up higher. They actually have really long stems for being an alpine sunflower. I think because we're a little more protected down here, but see the beautiful ray flowers, the nice disc flowers in the middle, and also, hey son, tracking it like you're supposed to. All right, another one of my favorite things about nature in general is the smells. So this is the Engelmann spruce again. Got to get the, put your nose right up in there, just getting this like deep, like vanilla, like butterscotchy smell. And sometimes when you're out in the forest, like if it's like misty or there's a light rain, you just get like, you can just smell it in the air. It's just all of like the sap and all of the nutrients are full of sugars that kind of create that fragrance that people, or me especially, are attracted to. So next time you're outside, don't forget to, while you're hugging a tree, put your nose in there, take a big whiff, and smell the glory of nature. Oh cool, check it out, I finally found one in flower. One of the neat things about going uphill when you're botanizing is that things that you see that have already seeded or the flowers have dried up, at the bottom you might find flowers at the top. I think we've climbed about 1,000 feet so far, so it's a lot cooler up here. If you look at this, same family as the elephant head. It's another pedicularis. This one I think is called like a yellow lousewort or something less fun. But even compared to the last one, you see this has like the same kind of like trunk-like thing out the top, but none of those banner flowers that we saw previously. So just, yeah, cool. Another similar but different species. Okay, so another interesting thing is that sometimes flowers don't really put all their effort into being beautiful. Like this one. This is as good as it's gonna get. You see, bright colors, attracting pollinators. This guy's just like, nah. I'll just be like yellowish green, kind of blend in, and be okay with it. So it's still gets the job done. All right, this is a fun one. This is the elk thistle. Hi, Columbine. So this is just like some of the thistles you'll find that are weeds. It's got the pokiness. This one's got less bright purple flowers, but it's aster species. You can see those are, what you're seeing here is all of the stamens popping out of the flowers. These are all just really small ray flowers in there. No disc flowers on this one. Used as a spine to protect itself from getting eaten. Not sure if elk actually eat this. I'll probably look it up and post it on here. But it's pretty and pretty dangerous. Alright, one of the fun things about looking for wildflowers is sometimes you see animals too. Check it out, it's a moose. Moose, 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 moose. This is the first time I've seen a moose on this trail. Those. Second one way back there. It's exciting. But while we're here, check this out. You can see this line, what looks like mulch, is actually this tree decomposing. This is the way nature kind of revives itself, is that when a tree falls in the forest, over time it slowly decomposes, and this, as it breaks down, creates food basically for more plants to grow. So right now, there's not a lot here because it's blocking access to those deeper soils, but over time this will break down and this will be like a really nutrient-rich space for future flowers to grow. All right, according to my watch, we're now at 11,150 feet. It's pretty high. It's getting hard to breathe. You'll also notice trees are getting smaller and a lot more spread out. So we're heading into the alpine zone where it's too high for trees to grow. And as you approach the subalpine, there are fewer and fewer spaces where trees have the right conditions to grow. So there'll be in these little pockets on the side of a slope or in a little bit of a depression where a little more soil can accumulate. And they're smaller, one, because it's colder, there's snow on the ground longer, fewer nutrients. It's also the soils are a lot thinner, so you can't get as good of a root system growing as you can lower down. Look at that. Bye, trees. There's only a couple left. We're getting there. All right, so one of the things you're going to notice as we get into these alpine plants is that everything's a little bit smaller. So as you look in general, you don't see a whole lot sticking out above the ground, especially then you get into the smaller things like this guy. All right, so this is the dwarf Lewisia, and I really enjoy this one because, again, it reminds me of this flower, the bitterroot, that grows at Craters of the Moon National Monument. And Craters of the Moon, like this was a flower that just grow out of the black asphalt soils they have there. It's just a bright pink, but a lot bigger flower than this. Just grow in the middle of the summertime. It's absolutely gorgeous. So this one, much smaller version of that. Again, Dwarf Lewisia. Ooh, here's another fun one. And it's great because it'll let me dive out of the wind. So, we looked at these last time. This is the yellow variety of the paintbrush. It's same as before. You have the calyx here. You can see the flowers sticking out just a little bit. And it's growing nice and short. The reason that this happens is determined by a number of factors. Part of it, as I kind of mentioned earlier, the soils are very shallow. These are like the tops of the mountains, so like there's not a lot of nutrients built up in them. Part of it is to avoid herbivory. If you're an elk or a moose that we just saw walking by and you have this plant that's like this tall, it's just gonna be like chomp, chomp, chomp. That's for me. But when they're closer to the ground, it's a little bit harder for them to eat. Lastly is it's a shorter growing season. So this was all covered in snow up until probably the beginning of June, and it's now July. And there's probably gonna be snow again here in like September. So it's a really short time. You don't want to spend a whole lot of energy growing tall when all you have to do is grow low. The pollinators are gonna find you down here because that's where everything else is, and you're more protected from everything. Oh man, those mountains are beautiful. Ooh, okay, cool. Check this one out. This one is the Silky Facilia. And I always think of this one special to me because I think about it as like the first flower I really cared about, which I know isn't actually true. But when I was at Yellowstone, these would pop up on the side of the road and I would be like, this is cool and this is really pretty. What is this? Eventually, I started asking those questions and found the person who was super into flowers there. They started taking me out, showing me all the different flowers, and kind of started this whole process. So whenever I see the Silky Facilia, I always think about like one of the beginnings for me of like becoming a botanist. So special there. It's about you not being here, so I get to tell you what to put your attention on. Most of the time when I get here with a group of kids, I'm like, oh man, look at the lake, it's so pretty, and then they don't pay attention to me anymore, and they no longer care about the flowers. So yes, lake, look, it's pretty. We're still gonna go find some flowers. All right, here's a fun one. This is, whoops, I think the marsh marigold. So if you look closely, you see this one's got just like a ton of stamens growing around the outside there. Those white petals, always grows in these kind of like wet, marshy areas, often around lakes, up in high elevation spaces. So in this one, you can see all the stamens on the outside. You can see the stigmas in the middle, like where that pollen's going to attach. In this one, you already have pollen's been released. Now those stigmas attached to the ovaries are going to grow into the fruits there. All right, this is a really tiny one. This is an alpine violet. So one that you're probably familiar with just from either your garden outside or just walking around the streets. Violets are pretty common. This one though, super tiny. Get into the ground. Boom. So here's my finger for scale. Those itty bitty beautiful flowers. Alright, so here's a fun little look at the hydrology of this place. So we have snow. This whole area covered in snow in the wintertime. As the snow melts, flows down these creeks, accumulates in this little, in the depression that was in the ground here. So you can see kind of the hillsides all around it. allows that lake to form. On the far side out there is where the lake empties into the stream, and that stream flows down to the beginning, and it was making all that noise that blocked out the cars when we started out. So it's the full cycle right here. Ooh, this is fun. So we saw the yellow paintbrush earlier. These are actually the same species, but we had the pink ones kind of that we saw down the hill last time. There's actually a white morph here, which are much less common than either the pink or the yellow. Well, that's it for me today. Thanks for coming along on this journey. Started out in the forested areas around 9,500 feet, ended up in this beautiful alpine lake. I'm up about 11,500 feet. So above the tree lines, saw wide diversity of flowers. A lot of them we saw at the bottom and at the top. I might not have showed you that. I saw them there. So next time you come, keep your head to the ground, pay attention, and get excited about more than the moose. See you soon. Boom! Wow, it's like we're in a Marvel movie with an end credit sequence. Just remembered that we had this little sunflower that we saw earlier. It's getting a little cloudy out, so not standing super tall, but just like I said, probably looking this way before in the sun. A couple hours later, we're moving. All right, for real, that's it. Bye.